morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here today. It's a pleasure to have you. Madam President, thank you so much for joining us and very happy to see you again in Alba. Today's topic of the fireside chat will focus more on the idea of Europe in a shifting world, meaning that we are going to talk more about recharging this idea with democracy. So in a time when democracy is being tested, Europe's strength lies in its unity and its values. The fireside chat, more importantly, will explore how democracy remains the foundation of Europe's security and prosperity, and in this case, why recharging Europe and its security, prosperity means renewing our commitment to law, to cooperation and integration. So drawing back from Kosovo's story, we would like to know more, and if Madam President could also highlight the role of the Western Balkans in Europe's unfinished project of integration and its importance of transatlantic partnerships. And at the same time, the responsibility that small states such as Kosovo can carry in the wider security architecture. So I would really want to have feedback from your side on the theme of this year's forum, which is Recharge Europe. From your perspective, what does recharging Europe with democracy mean, and why is it urgent in today's shifting global context?
Well, first of all, great to be in Alba again and to see so many of you again. It was my favorite part in both of the last years, talking to students, young people from around the world, and hearing so much from you, and also learning so much from you and your ideas, and being recharged ourselves with the energy that we need before we move on with all of the September work. But I would like to start by saying that, of course, the topic sounds very, very wide, but I do hope that throughout this week and until the forum finishes, you will be getting a glimpse of some of the ideas of how we can recharge it with what it needs. I strongly believe that a strong Europe, based on what was the vision of the founders, a Europe whole, free, and at peace, can never be a realized dream as long as we have, as you pointed out, an unfinished project. And Europe as a whole, free, and at peace is still an unfinished project. It's an unfinished project because you still have Europeans that have contributed to the Europe that is today, that have contributed to the values on which the European Union was founded, however, are not within the European Union yet as the values-based system that was created many decades ago. Therefore, I think that the moment when Europe, or to be more exact, the European Union understands that its strongest foundation, its people, that's the moment where we can truly think about recharging it, and we can truly start thinking about Europe as a project that is whole, free, and at peace. The moment important parts of Europe are left outside or are seen as less European, as sometimes we might see from different countries, or to be more exact, different leaders within the European Union, I do not think that that is a contribution towards recharging Europe, and I don't think that is a contribution towards a Europe that is whole, free, and at peace. You know, Václav Havel, one of the leaders that I think has been so consequential for our continent, but also beyond, in one of his most amazing speeches in the European Union, and if you haven't read it, I would invite you to do it. He talks about how at the end, what will save Europe and what will save the world is the human heart. It's the people. It's not going to be some very complex notion. It's not going to be some very outstanding vision of a leader. It's going to be the human heart. It's going to be the values that stand at the humanity that are going to save it. And at that time, you know, he was leading the Czech Republic, and perhaps the Czech Republic, of course, the Czech Republic was not the strong European Union member that is today after spending so many years within the Union. However, he was talking about how many within the European Union think of who is less European and who is more European. And he used this a metaphor of thinking of a room and you're saying it's half flooded. Well, it's not half flooded. When there's flood, the entire room is flooded. Therefore, you cannot say that half of Europe is European and the other half is less European. And at the end of the speech, he told the entire European Parliament that actually he was thinking whether he needs to prove to everyone there that he is a true European. And at the end he said, I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't have to. And the way how we in the Western Balkans feel is exactly the same way that Václav Havel was feeling, many decades ago. We shouldn't have to. We truly shouldn't have to prove the rest of Europe that we are European enough to be part of this values-based system that is whole, free, and at peace. What we should be proving, however, is that we can contribute to recharging Europe as a continent or the Union as this values-based system with its values that stand at its foundation: rule of law, human rights, democracy. Rule of law, human rights, democracy. And perhaps I can dwell a little bit on it later so that I don't start with too long of an introduction. But I strongly believe that we are at an inflection point where way too many European politicians and bureaucrats have forgotten about what the true values at the foundation of the European Union are, or they just turn a blind eye on those who violate these foundations and these values. And they just, depending on where is the comfort zone, forget when someone is an autocrat and doesn't care about rule of law, human rights, and democracy. And values have become more of a rhetoric rather than walking the talk, rather than true action, or even worse, using values and using conditions for some, but not for everyone. And I strongly believe that we will be able to recharge democracy at the time when the same rules applies to everyone, where the same foundations and the same values and the same alignment with these values are required of everyone. Not to be okay with one that is an autocrat and doesn't care about these values, however, keeps opening chapters towards European Union membership. And then for the other, that actually meets all of these values and all of these foundations and works to recharge them on a daily basis, whether it's democracy, rule of law, human rights, to act completely different and in an unfair way. So to conclude, recharging democracy comes not only with values and principles, but also with people who uphold these values and these principles, no matter how hard, and even if it requires getting out of your comfort zone, and even if it requires you to face and challenge the autocrats who are challenging the values within our system and within our continent today. So just a few introductory thoughts, but then we can get into more detail, of course.
Definitely. I think that what you explained right now will connect with our second question. So some argue that small states don't have much influence in shaping global affairs in this case. Yet, Kosovo has shown that even as a small country as we are, we can have a big impact out there. How do you see Kosovo's voice contributing to Europe's unity and resilience in this sense?
Well, it depends who in Europe you ask, but those countries, those leaders that truly believe in the values that stand at the foundations of the European Union, again, to repeat, human rights, democracy, and rule of law, those countries and those leaders will truly appreciate the contribution that the Republic of Kosovo has been given for a very, very long time. Now, of course, we talk about the European Union, but Europe and the values on which it stands are so much older than the European Union itself. Our continent had to go through immense challenges, and we are a nation that, if we go back 500 years ago, we defended the last port of Europe. We defended the values that today stand at the very foundation of the Union. And we've continued to do that as a nation that never, ever looked elsewhere, as a nation that never, ever flirted with the other powers, as a nation that has never allowed for malign influences to get into our country or within our spirit or within our beliefs. Even today, over 97% of the people of Kosovo trust the transatlantic alliance. They trust European Union and NATO, despite of the lot of the frustration that there's a lot of unfairness on the way how we're being treated. So let's look at the factual situation in the ground. Kosovo has a 100% alignment with the European Union decisions, whether on sanctions, economy, or every other rule and decision that the European Union has made. A 100% alignment. Secondly, we get the best yearly country reports in our region. Whether we're talking about economic reforms or rule of law reforms or human rights and democracy, Kosovo tops these reforms, and we've been doing that for a couple of years already. When we're talking about contributing to, let's say, sanctions globally, contributing to other European Union priorities, we do that gladly and we do that actively. So as a small country, we punch above our weight. When we had to receive Afghan evacuees, and we had to support our US partners as well as NATO, we were the first country in the world to be there for them. When we had to align on Ukraine to support them through humanitarian, military and training support, including supporting the victims of sexual violence during the war, supporting civil society and supporting journalists, we were there for them. When we need to serve shoulder to shoulder with our Western partners in missions around the world, we are there for them. We're ready to give back. We are a nation that was built with the help of allies, but now we're ready to give back and we're giving back. Nevertheless, oftentimes the countries like Kosovo who truly align and who truly contribute are neither appreciated nor given the benefit of the doubt. For example, we're the only country in the Western Balkans that does not have a candidate status for the European Union membership yet. There are a lot of other struggles, of course, that we're facing, a lot of other challenges that we're facing in the path towards European Union membership. So it looks like, on one hand, you align 100%, you do all of your homework on rule of law, you do all of your homework on economic reforms, you do all of your homeworks on human rights and fundamental values, yet none of this counts. So the question is, if it doesn't count, what is the message that is being given to our region or other aspiring countries? Well, let me tell you what was the message that we received, especially in the past couple of years. The message that was given to our region was this: if you align, if you reform rule of law, if you truly believe in the European Union, and 97% of the people of your country truly believe in this values-based system, then you're going to get stuck. However, if you go to Moscow for not just for alignment on foreign and defense policy and gas and oil and so on and so forth, but if you go to Moscow to help Moscow in their war against Europe, if you go to Moscow because you actually believe in what Putin represents, if you go to Moscow because that's who you are in terms of what you believe in, that's when you get more chapters opened. That's when you get more European Union money. And obviously I'm talking about the example of Serbia, but I can give you a few more. It has been such a horrible message to send to the Western Balkans and other aspiring countries. When you see an autocrat like the president of Serbia, cracking down on civil society, using violence against its people, no human rights, no rule of law, no fundamental values, and no alignment. He took his country from 96% alignment about a decade ago to 46% alignment with the EU, according to the EU itself, yet receiving 63% of the European Union financial support dedicated for the entire Western Balkans. The rest of us, 5 of us, who are at a 100% alignment, we get 37% altogether. Serbia alone, 63%. And, hailed for their leadership. Leadership in what? In spending the 9th of May, the Day of Europe, with Putin? Or helping Putin spread conflict beyond Ukraine? Or making sure that they continue to buy more weapons from Russia, more weapons from Belarus, more from Iran, and aligning also with their ideology? That is what has been rewarded by the European Union of today, that kind of behavior. And I don't think that kind of behavior can recharge Europe with democracy. My hope, I'll be very honest with you because I started politics really young, my hope is in each and every one of you. That when you take over the European Union, you will change this horrible mindset that exists right now. It's like, in the US they say, it's easier to twist your friend's arm because, your friend trusts you. So the more we trust the European Union, the more our arm is twisted. The more we align, the more we are left behind. And the more we do to support the European Union and what it stands for, whether on Ukraine or other issues that are values-based, the less support we get to actually join the European Union. And to conclude, I don't really think that was the intention of the founders. I think the intention was, no matter how small or big a country is, it will be valued for the conditions it meets, the criteria it meets, the homework it does, but also for what it stands. Because it should matter. It should matter what you stand for. And it should matter who you stand for. Because after all, if it doesn't, then what is the point of the European Union? What is the point? If it doesn't matter if you have stood with Ukraine or Russia, if it doesn't matter if you stood with the European Union or its adversaries, then what is the point of talking, just rhetorically speaking, talking about values, if when the time comes and the going gets tough, you don't really show yourself to stand for those values? It would have been easier for us as a country to just stay silent, say, we're too little, we're too small, we're too weak, so why should we stand so loud and clear with the values that are being attacked in Ukraine today? It would have been easier because then Russia would have been easier against us. But we didn't take the easy road out. I don't think there should be a gray zone there. You should know what you stand for and where you stand. So in that sense, I don't think it's the size of the country that defines its impact, and Kosovo is a testament to that. It's the values that it stands for and the story that it has to tell. And we have an amazing story to tell, a success story to tell, a success story that also belongs to the European Union. And they should be proud of it, proud to make sure that they can showcase how when they support a country based on values of democracy and human rights, that's what they get back. They get back a partner, a friend, and an ally who joins them in defending the exact same values.
Definitely, I agree with all the stated points. And this brings me to my third question, where you often say that Europe is not complete without the Western Balkans. Why is it essential why is it the integration of countries like ours, like Kosovo, so essential for Europe's future? And what message do you bring to leaders who hesitate in this case on the enlargement case?
I think for two main reasons, and obviously the list is very long, but I'll focus on two. The first, I think it's a security necessity. It's very easily confirmed it's a security necessity. Look, our adversaries, and I'm talking here about Russia, China to some extent, and Iran, they don't come to our region for charity. We should know that. They come because they see a strategic interest to expand their influence in that essential part of Europe. So there's never a vacuum. If the West doesn't have enough influence, and I'm not only talking about economic influence, but I'm talking about values-based influence, then others will come and they will spread that malign influence that will cause a security challenge for the entire European Union. We're very close by. I mean, who's from Greece here? We're just a 4-hour drive from Greece. We're just a 4-hour drive from Bulgaria, a few-hour drive from Hungary. I mean, we're kind of one big country, the entire European continent. It's really, I mean, to think that you can just leave a part of your continent and just say whatever happens with it, let it happen, because the flood that Václav Havel was talking about, it's not going to get to us. Well, it's going to get to you. It's going to get to you because, a room, as he said, cannot be half flooded. So let's make sure that we stop the flood altogether. So I think it's a security imperative, because the Western Balkans that is not secure means a European Union that is not secure. The second, I think it's a strategic imperative in terms of the potential. The Western Balkans has the human potential, has the economic potential, both of which, and of course now talking about technology and the age of the AI, especially in that sense, the Western Balkans has a potential that the European Union right now needs. I think it's about time that we stop being seen as a burden, but rather as a potential that can contribute to the European Union. So as I said, the list is long, but the security imperative and the strategic necessity of the European Union itself, I think, are the two main reasons.
So going back to the first point that you made, which is security, how do you see Kosovo's role in the broader European security architecture? And what does partnership with NATO and the US mean for our country?
These are essentials, and I would say not just for our country, but for the rest of the region. I'm glad that finally Europe is also recharging in the area of defense. Now, after the last NATO summit, the members of NATO have recommitted, as you know now, committed actually, for a higher percentage in spending. Kosovo already spends 2% of its budget. We're going to double that down in the next couple of years. And I think we're going to achieve the 5% well before most of the NATO members do. I think this is essential so that we can have the necessary defense capacities given the security challenges in our region. But we don't want to do this only for ourselves, but also as a contribution to the NATO alliance. And I think with the passing of time, there will be more and more NATO members that will again see Kosovo as a member that can contribute to the alliance, both because of its spending as well as because of its young generation of soldiers, all of whom have been trained based on NATO standards, mostly in the United States, the United Kingdom, and a few other NATO member states, and who have been doing an amazing job in some niche capabilities that NATO might need, starting from search and rescue and a few others. So I think it's going to be important to move ahead really fast in this strategic priority, which is NATO membership, both because the more NATO territory in the Western Balkans, the safer that territory is, but at the same time because of the contribution that we can give to the alliance, both in terms of people as well as in terms of defense weaponry.
As one of the youngest heads of states in Europe, you broke barriers as a woman and as a leader. What message do you have for young people in Europe, in this case for the people in this room, and especially students here at Alba, about their role in defending democracy and shaping alliance?
I would say my first message is it's not going to be easy. It can get quite difficult, whether we're talking about a typical political job or profession, and joining political parties and joining the parliament and going all the way to becoming presidents of your countries. It's not an easy path. When you prepare yourself for that mentally, then it's so much easier to get through the hurdles that you get on the way. I would say when you start young, you will, no matter in which country you are, in some more than in others, I would say, you will be told way too many times, you're too young, you don't know the stuff. I got that very, very often. If I had $1 every single time, I was told that. But it's something that you will be facing. Your youth will be used against you. Try not to ever let that get into you. Just because you're young, it doesn't mean that you know less. It doesn't mean that you can do things worse, quite the opposite. Sometimes because of the enthusiasm that youth brings, because of the fresh ideas, you can do things better. And you bring the freshness that the people always ask for in every election. So you are the necessity without whom no political party and no political institution can survive. So know that. You are valuable. You are absolutely valuable. And they cannot do it without you. They can't. Know that for yourselves. And work really, really hard. Because as I said, it's not going to be easy. Sometimes you're going to have to work 5 times harder than the older generation. Now I consider myself part of that, the older generation. And if you're a young woman, that means 10 times harder most of the times. But do the work. do the work so that the young girls that will come after you will not have to deal with the same hurdles. I mean, our moms and grandmothers had to deal with so much more, but they removed so much of the stones from our path, and we removed some and will continue to remove more so that you have less. But then you have to make sure that you remove the remaining ones so that the young women and the young men understand that just having equal chances and equal opportunities is the very foundation of a healthy and successful society. But again, there will be a lot of hurdles in your way. Don't let that get into you. Don't let that take your passion away. Take it with humor. It's very important to take it with humor. Don't let people who try to destroy you very early on, and they will try from day one, so that you give up very early on. If you can get by in the first few years, then no matter how difficult it gets, you will make it. And I think that applies to every other difficult job, not just in politics. But my final point is that this is what I said last time as well: is no matter what job you get, never stop being an activist at heart. I think that's what keeps you going. Never stop being an activist at heart.
Yeah, especially in such difficult situations that we're now globally, I think that activism is one of the first most important things that will move us forward.
Absolutely.
I would really like to also get some feedback also from the audience, since we're already having this message towards them. So whoever feels
Sure.
Okay, yeah, the first one, please.
Hello, Madam President, I'm Katrina from Croatia, and I'm very honored to see you back again in Alpbach. I would like, you have touched upon the security and strategic interests that the EU has in the Western Balkans. And I think that Croatia has already started exactly with Kosovo and Albania. We have agreed on the declaration of military cooperation. And I would like to hear, how do you see that, not only as the national security level of Kosovo, but in general, the mood of this foundation of democracy with signing this declaration? Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think that was an important declaration, but it was also based on practices that exist between friendly countries and allies elsewhere in the world, whether we're talking about the Baltics or we're talking about Nordic countries or even Latin American countries. Countries around the world do that. So we're neighbors, we're close to one another, and what is very important is that Kosovo, Croatia, and Albania strongly believe in the same values, in the same foundations, and we think that we should defend them together. So I think it was only natural, and as president, I've been advocating for that for quite many years, and I'm absolutely happy that it finally happened. We've been working on it for longer than longer than 5 years, I would say. And now this is a result of a cooperation that I would say is based on some very tough historical experiences on one hand, but most importantly, it's based on looking forward. And Croatia, I think, is the backbone of this partnership for the reason that it's also in the European Union. Thankfully, also Albania is in NATO, but they're not in the European Union yet. Croatia is the backbone because they're both in the European Union and NATO. And Croatia has been playing this role of really being the voice of our region and pushing forward for the Western Balkans joining the European Union too, as a necessity for both security as well as, strategic interests of Europe itself. So I think these kind of partnerships can only contribute to more safety, more security, and sometimes it's more practical. For example, if we want to buy weapons from, big countries, it's so much easier if it's a group of countries applying at the same time and it goes faster than if it's just individual countries. It's just, procedurally, it's so much more practical. And again, when you work with countries that you truly align on everything from values to foundations as well as future visions, it makes such agreements a necessity, but at the same time something that will help the entire continent. That agreement was not to endanger anyone, quite the opposite. It's about strengthening ourselves, our capabilities to defend ourselves, but also helping our continent. I mean, you earlier asked how can Kosovo help? Now, this new initiative within the European Union to arm itself better, we're working a lot in our defense industry. And given that we also have the human skill in that aspect, I think Kosovo will be, again, a small country that punches above its weight on the issue of producing weapons that Europe will need. So not just for ourselves, but also for the necessities of our continent. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Leo. I'm from Taiwan, and as you know, I think Taiwan have a similar situation with Kosovo. We are a very small country, and we sometimes are suppressed by China a lot. So, as a president, you talk about how you contribute the EU community actively, and what I want to know is how would you recommend young people, not only for the national part of it, how young people like us can do to contribute the society, not only EU or over the global world. Like, how can we contribute? Like, what is there any advice you can give us? Thank you.
Again, take advice from any politician with a pinch of salt, because our own experience is based on our own experience, and not necessarily will it fit every part of the world and every single individual life. But generally speaking, I think for places that still have security challenges, it's very important that the young generation is constantly educated about how freedom is not for granted. It's never for granted, and it's not a given. Democracy is never for granted, and it's never a given. These are values for which you have to fight and defend day in, day out. It's not only the work of one generation. It's the work of every single generation. I mean, we had to go through a war. Our parents had to go through a war. Our grandparents had to go through a war. Every generation before our kids had to go through a war. Our kids are the very first generation in Kosovo, in the existence of our nation, that has not gone through a war and have only known peace. But it doesn't come by itself. We need to educate the younger generation who have not gone through a war that freedom is not for granted. The right to go to school, a right that we didn't have because it was denied to us because of the apartheid-like regime, is not for granted. Going freely to school is something that we never had. Going to your job, to work, was something our parents never had. Going to a movies or playing basketball was a right we never had. Writing in our own language or just carrying a book in our own language was a crime for which we would be attacked as kids. We need to make sure that every generation knows the very high price that was paid for freedom, and also understands that it needs to be constantly defended and nourished. Both democracy and freedom need to be constantly nurtured. Otherwise, they will not survive, because we have malign actors who constantly challenge them, who don't believe in democracy and in the values of freedom, and who want to constantly attack them. They never stop. Therefore, we should never stop in defending them. So I think that has been the lesson that we have also learned from Ukraine. I mean, for 400 years, Ukraine is attacked, and then it regains its freedom, and then it's attacked again, and it regains its freedom. Practically almost every generation had to fight for the freedom. But at the same time, we understand that just because one country is peaceful one day, that doesn't mean that there aren't actors who are going to attack your peace, who are going to attack your freedom. And for those of us that have crazy neighbors, that is even, a reality of every day. We need to make sure that the young generation is educated in a way that really preserves and protects peace, really preserves and protects freedom, while looking ahead and making sure that we contribute to the future generations, but always understanding that it's not for granted, it's not a given, and it must be protected on a daily basis. Just as a general, I would say, principle that applies to every country, no matter where you are.
I think, yeah, you were the second one.
Hi, first of all, thanks for being here. My name is Luca from Barcelona. So I was wondering about the specific case of the recognition of Kosovo by Spain. I wanted to ask what efforts is Kosovo doing for Spain to recognize Kosovo finally? And secondly, being from Barcelona, so also being Catalan, I'm also curious to know what's Kosovo's position right now regarding Catalonia? Also because we were talking about the fact that sometimes values and principles do not apply to everyone equally. So are we in a similar situation situation, or aren't we in a similar situation?
So with Spain, it's very interesting, you know, in 2008 to 2010, I was representing my country before the International Court of Justice. If you remember, Serbia had asked this question from the ICJ, whether Kosovo's declaration of independence was in line with international law. And a few days before the ICJ took its decision, at that time the Spanish, I think it was the Prime Minister, if I'm not mistaken, but I can find the exact name, but he was asked by a Kosovo student, and in a gathering like this, what if the International Court of Justice says that Kosovo's independence is in full compliance with international law? What are you going to do? Are you going to recognize it? And he said yes. If it says that if it's in line with international law, then we have no problem. But it's not in line with international law, he insisted. Anyways, a few days after, the International Court of Justice decided, guess what? Kosovo's declaration of independence violated no rule of general international law, no rule of Security Council Resolution 1244, or anything out there, and quite the opposite. The entire way how Resolution 1244 on Kosovo had been drafted was actually drafted in a way to allow for the final status to be settled in line with the will of the people, which is exactly what happened on the 17th of February 2008. The status of Kosovo was defined after a lengthy process of negotiations led by the international community, which became a report of the UN Secretary General. It led to a proposal by this UN Special Representative that Kosovo should become independent. And only then did we declare independence. So it was a lengthy process. Unfortunately, since that promise that if the ICJ says there's no violation, they would recognize, there has been no movement. There have been some positive movement on another aspect. For example, I was a member of parliament for many years before becoming Speaker of Parliament and President of Kosovo. And in the past, if I would be in the same room, like, let's say, in a parliamentary gathering, the Spanish would leave. Guess what? The Serbs would stay, and the Spanish would leave. We call it more Catholic than the Pope, right? So it was really weird because, of course, they were not changing anything. We were staying on an equal footing like everyone else, and we were making sure that our voice is heard. Now they don't do that any longer, so it's very important that Spain is staying in all of these international gatherings. They listen to what is our position. I think it's a very unfortunate situation because Spain is a country that has historically contributed to Europe's security, safety, and peace. And it's a country that, you know, if you look at its position, let's say, on Ukraine, it's entirely different. It has supported Ukraine from Russia, from an aggressor. In the case of Kosovo, historically speaking, you know, history, law, and all developments showcase that Kosovo was illegally annexed by Serbia. It was an illegal annexation. It was an illegal occupation. Kosovo's independence was righting the wrong in history. Legally speaking, Kosovo had the right to declare independence based on a lot of principles of international law with which I don't want to bore you with. But most importantly, Kosovo's people had to undergo genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. And before that, we had to undergo an apartheid-like system that striped us off of every single individual and collective human right and freedom. When the war started, I mean, we have the largest number of children killed per capita of any war in former Yugoslavia. Spain participated in the NATO bombings to stop that genocide. The Secretary General of NATO was, for a while, was Spanish. Spain knows what happens in Kosovo. Spain knows that what happened in Kosovo was an intention to destroy the people of Kosovo, which was the intention to commit genocide. Spain knows that the ICTY and other international tribunals have defined that the Milosevic regime has committed war crimes, crimes against humanity against the people of Kosovo. Spain knows that to quote a Brazilian judge in the International Court of Justice, when a country abuses the notion of territorial integrity and sovereignty to kill people, to commit genocide, to commit crimes against humanity, you cannot invoke those principles any longer. Spain knows that Serbia cannot invoke those principles. And Spain also knows, by the way, that Resolution 1244 had not talked about the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Serbia, but of Yugoslavia, a country that doesn't exist, big news, any longer. It doesn't exist. So whose sovereignty and territorial integrity is Spain protecting by not recognizing Kosovo, for God's sakes? A nation that had to endure genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. I think it makes absolutely no sense to compare yourself with a regime like Milošević, because I don't think Spain has committed the crimes that the Milošević regime has committed. So instead of saying, you know, we're going to recognize Kosovo both because the ICJ has said it's in line with international law, but also because of all of the crimes that the Milošević regime has committed against Kosovo, and finally, because it's in the strategic interest of Europe. This is the last remaining piece of puzzle for lasting peace and stability. It's the last piece of puzzle. And Spain, alongside Slovakia, Romania, Greece, and who am I missing? Cyprus. These 5 countries that we respect deeply for who they are, the people of whom we respect deeply for who they are, and we also respect the leaders of these countries, they need to finally contribute for this last piece of puzzle that remains to achieve lasting peace and stability. Now, you asked about, what was the last piece of the question, whether we are similar. I mean, the International Court of Justice has defined why, from a legal point of view, the situation is very different from other parts of the world. I mean, I don't want to dwell on it for a very long time. But for example, there are decisions of the UN, there are proposals of the UN Special Representative for Kosovo to declare independence and so on. So there was a very strong basis in the case of Kosovo, alongside the fact that we as a people had to endure, as I said, genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. So I do hope that there will be more politicians in Spain that will recognize the reality that Kosovo is and will remain forever sovereign, independent, democratic, and free. We're not going anywhere.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Isa. I'm from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you to the delegation of Kosovo for organizing this chat. It's a pleasure
Thank
to
you.
have a chance to talk to you. I'd just like to say that I truly believe that solidarity is yellow, blue, and white, and I hope that you do know that we have a friend in Bosnia and Herzegovina despite the challenges we face with recognition, and I'm hoping that we will be able to reciprocate the visa policy very soon.
I hope so.
But I would like to go back a bit with my question. I still view you as a young politician and a young representative.
Thank you, you're so The young people of Kosovo would disagree. No, I'm just joking, it's okay.
But what I've been impressed by in Kosovo is that you have managed to achieve what you were talking about. People of Kosovo understand that democracy and that freedom are a luxury, but not granted right, unfortunately. And I would like to hear your take and your advice to young people in Bosnia and Herzegovina how to achieve such discipline that Kosovo has and such social cohesion that Kosovo has in a country that is as divided as we are.
Well, thank you. You know how much I love Bosnia and Herzegovina. Every single time that I talk to, whether media, internationally, I never say just Kosovo should join the European Union and NATO. I always say Kosovo and Bosnia and Herzegovina should join the European Union and NATO. The people of Bosnia and Herzegovina have suffered so much, and it is unfortunate that because of so many political solutions of the past, many are still suffering, and it's still hard to unleash the true potential of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So it's only fitting that now in Kosovo we are trying not to make those same mistakes. But I don't pretend to know the politics of Bosnia and Herzegovina in terms of, political parties and how it works very, very well. But one thing that we see in Kosovo, and that I'm not sure how much you have present in Bosnia and Herzegovina, is young people in political parties. And not just young people sitting and doing nothing. Young people who lead in political parties, who lead with conviction, who lead no matter how hard, and who fight all the time. Whether it's the dinosaurs within the political parties or those outside the political parties. I think that has helped Kosovo in so many reforms and in making sure that we achieve a lot, whether locally or abroad. Doesn't mean that I want to paint a rosy picture and say that things are perfect. Obviously, we have a lot of challenges, including nowadays. However, young people who fight within political parties, within your parliament, and now, with today's technology, you have an amazing chance to be out there through your social media without necessarily your political party giving you the permission to go to an evening interview. But you can just have your voice heard without the necessity of the structure that the political party offers as support. I think we need to see more of that in Bosnia and Herzegovina, I would say. And of course, that will not resolve the complexities of how the country functions, because you will still have 3 presidents, and you will still have one that will disagree out of the 3 to recognize Kosovo. But we're patient, and we're going to wait for the right moment. But I think in terms of just understanding that freedom is always something that you need to protect, and that is constantly challenged, and so is democracy. It requires people with the passion, with the enthusiasm, and with the courage. It takes a lot of courage to fight within our political systems, as you know. A lot of courage in order to fight your way through, but also to fight to defend then the values that both Kosovo and Bosnia and Herzegovina had to pay a very high price to defend. So in that sense, I would say just, be as active as you can and encourage others to be as active as they can, and no matter how hard it gets. And sometimes it takes longer than you expect, but, it's a marathon, as you've heard from so many.
We'll take now the last 3 questions. So who was first here? I think you were asking for so long.
My name is Kovács, I come from Hungary, and I have a background in history and memory studies. And what I find is that at the heart of the European integration is the reconciliation of 2 adversary powers, France and Germany. And I do believe that for stability and peace in the Western Balkans, something similar should be done, that adversary sides sit at the table, discuss their past deeds, and maybe agree. What effort does Kosovo take and plans to take in order that there can be such reconciliation in the Western Balkans among the warriors nations? Thank you.
Thank you. As a student of history, you of course know very well, but I think it's important to just mention this as a reminder that Germany had to do a lot. Germany had to do a lot of denazification, if I may call it so, before they moved on in their peace with France and their peace with the rest of Europe. Because of the Nazi crimes and the Second World War, it wasn't just like, France and Germany sat at the table and they forgot about what happened. No. It was precisely because they didn't forget about what happened that peace was possible. It was precisely because they dealt with the past instead of just burying down the past that peace was possible. It was precisely because justice happened, and it's still, by the way, happening, as you know. There are still reparations being paid. Germany still pays reparations to nations around the world. Germany still pays reparations. And it's been decades after the Second World War. Germany paid reparations. Germany made sure that those who committed the crimes faced justice. Germany changed entirely and paid a very, very high price. Even those who didn't participate directly in crimes paid a very high price for the crimes of their predecessors in Germany. Germany dealt with its past. Therefore, peace was possible with France. Now, let's get back to our region. We have one warrior nation, one country that led wars against everyone else. So, I never accept this moral equivalency that is tried when saying, nations in the Balkans just kill each other. No, we don't. No, we don't. We were sitting in our own home, and someone else from another country came to kill us. That's, to simplify it or oversimplify it, is what happened. So equalizing the aggressor and the victim is never the right way forward. Both-sidism is never the right way forward, especially you as a young generation. Never accept both-sidism. Never accept the gray zone. There was an aggressor, Milosevic's regime, and there were a number of victims of that regime, starting with Croatia, Slovenia, moving on with Bosnia-Herzegovina, other countries in our region that almost, had to go through the same war, and then ended with Kosovo. And it ended because Milosevic capitulated to the Western powers, to countries like yours and the United States and many in Europe, who came to stop those wars that he caused against innocent people that led to around 150,000 civilians killed by the Milosevic regime, by one regime. Now, what has happened since then? Has there been justice for the victims in Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Kosovo? Very, very, very few cases. The vast majority of criminals who committed the crimes, and there's evidence that has been collected by civil society in Serbia, and that has been sent to the prosecutors and so on. Do you know where these guys are right now? They are roaming free in Serbia. They get medals from the current president of Serbia, and they are being awarded and promoted in higher jobs. That's what happened. So no justice. Have there been reparations? Zero reparations. 80% of Kosovo was destroyed to the ground. Let's not talk about what happened during the siege of Sarajevo. You still see bullets in the buildings. And most importantly, the human suffering. Thousands are still in massive graves. Thousands of victims, mostly women and children. Thousands of victims are in massive graves, whether victims from Kosovo, from Bosnia-Herzegovina, and from Croatia, are still in massive graves in Serbia. We want our loved ones back. Now, what did we do? We extended the hand of cooperation to Serbia. We sat down in the same table with them. We've been negotiating and discussing with them for ages now, despite of the fact that they've never apologized, unlike Germany, never paid for reparations, unlike Germany, never delivered on justice, unlike Germany, never accepted the crimes, but they continue the policy of denial, unlike Germany, and they still attack Kosovo and Bosnia-Herzegovina, unlike Germany. I don't think they've attacked France anytime, lately. So it's completely different. But despite of it being completely different, despite of Serbia absolutely not ticking any of the boxes that Germany has on dealing with the past, we are still contributing to peace, still sitting down with them, still talking about, how we can help each other move towards the European Union, still, doing everything that a country that is committed to peace can do. Kosovo has accepted the European Union deal. Kosovo has accepted all of the Washington deals. Kosovo has accepted the proposals that were brokered by the European Union representative which is called the Brussels Agreement, the Ohrid Agreement, and so on and so forth. What did the president of Serbia do? He said, well, I have pain on my right-hand side, so I cannot sign the agreement, and this pain will continue for another couple of years, and the pain is still there, by the way, because he doesn't want to sign the agreement. Kosovo is offering to sign agreements that will lead the path towards long-lasting peace, despite of the fact that these are agreements with a lot of painful concessions for Kosovo. So accepting agreements, contributing to peace, never attacking an inch of the territory of any of our neighbors, contributing to peacekeeping missions around the world, aligning with the European Union on values and not just foreign policy but also defense. This is as much as we can do. We cannot change the leadership of Serbia. That is a job of the people of Serbia. So I do hope that one day Serbia will be led by someone that will be ready to deal with the past, not deny the past, to face justice, and at the same time work towards a joint future of the entire Western Balkans within the European Union. We don't want to see Serbia outside of the European Union. We want them within the European Union. We would hope that they would join NATO, but they don't like NATO. They don't want to join NATO, so we can't force them. The point is, they need to stick to the values that the European Union lives by. And one important value is that you should not attack your neighbor, right? And they keep doing that, unfortunately. The last couple of attacks were just recently, so I'm not talking about 1999. 2023, Serbia committed an act of aggression against Kosovo. 2024, an attack on our critical infrastructure. They continue attacking, arresting people, and they they try to destroy Bosnia-Herzegovina from within. So these are not things of the past any longer. This is a present that we have to live with. So despite of all of this, we continue to not just preserve peace and contribute to peace, but I think taking the example of France and Germany is really not fitting for the Western Balkans for the very simple reason that in the case of France and Germany, the country who committed all of those crimes in the Second World War dealt with its past. In the case of the wars in the Balkans, Serbia never dealt with its past. It's a fundamental issue, and I hope that there will be politicians in Serbia that will be ready for that one day.
You were the second one, and I think we'll have to kind of wrap it up.
Okay. I'm sorry, your questions are just too good. I get to give long answers.
Madam President, I'm also extremely happy that we have such a decisive voice that is also challenging Europe's policies, Europe's foreign policies. My name is Philip. I'm from Klappbach, Germany. And you have you have a lot of opportunities to go to Europe, to go to such events like EPA, where you meet a lot of young, very motivated activist people. So I'm wondering now, how do you communicate maybe to Kosovo people who maybe are a little frustrated, maybe even a little bit more, which is just frustrated regarding European policy, which you have outlined very, very well. How do you communicate with people that are frustrated, and because you are basically the bridge between us and the Kosovarians, even though they have no visa position, so they can visit you, but how do you communicate with them?
It's a quite complex communication. As I said, with the younger generation, their passion requires that you do things fast. But strategic patience is necessary when dealing with the European Union, and we try to explain that to the younger generation, whether they live in Kosovo or abroad. We have a very vibrant diaspora, as you know, especially in Germany, Switzerland, and a few other countries. And a diaspora that truly contributes to bringing the best of Germany, the best of Europe into Kosovo, the best of the European Union into Kosovo. One important factor is this. We know what is the opposite of this EU values-based system. We've lived it. It's destruction, it's human suffering, it's autocracy, it's horrible. So we don't look elsewhere. I mean, countries that have not seen the opposite of peace and the opposite of democracy. They might have, different ideas, and they flirt with, a lot of powers. But we can't take that risk, because we have seen what is the opposite of what we call Western values today, which, in fact, for us, it's the European Union and NATO, but also in other continents when we go around. It's about just believing in human rights, believing in democracy, and believing in the rule of law, no matter in which continent you are. And the way how we communicate with them is that it's very frustrating, it's very unfair how the European Union will treat us, but there's no better option. It's, to put it bluntly, there's absolutely no better option, and we need to stick to it. And the more we stick to it with conviction and with patience and with working hard, and again, continuing to punch above its weight, the faster we will walk towards it. I strongly believe that no matter how long it takes, we will get there. And when we get there, we will be a contributing member. We will be an important member of the European Union, despite of our small size. Our contribution will be defined, again, by our experience and the story that we have to tell, rather than just by the size of our territory or our economy. So it's about just understanding that this is the best option that remains there. And the European Union continues, despite of the challenges of today, continues to be one of the greatest achievements of humanity in terms of a peace project. And in our lifetimes, we have understood one thing. There's nothing more important than that, peace. Nothing more important than that. You can't have anything else. You might have amazing ideas on education, on economy, on health, on technology, on AI, but when you don't have peace, none of that matters. You're not going to be able to do it. So peace is worth fighting for. Peace is worth also waiting for. But while you make sure that you just don't sit and wait, but you work your way out of it. So.
I know there are a lot of questions as we get them for every year, but unfortunately our time now is up. I would really want to thank each and one of you for participating today and filling up our fireside chat, which at this point has turned into this annual lovely event that we get to have together. Thank you, Madam President, once again.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing this. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Faleminderit shumë. Faleminderit.